It's a new book written by one of the finest Indian Army officers in recent times. It's called India's Bravehearts. You can see it on your screen over there, Untold Stories from the Indian Army. Very happy to have with us on Vijay Divas, Lieutenant General Satish Dua. General Dua, it's good to be here, to have you on Vijay Divas to talk about your experience. I think the date is important. It's poignant to remember. Of course, a lot of your experiences have a lot to do with the surgical strikes which came just a few years back. And I've gone through the book, and you played a key role in those surgical strikes. And one of the first things I noticed is when Manohar Parrikar, the defense minister, went up to you and said, "What do you have to say?" And your answer was, "I simply said, aap haan keh do, main kar dunga, sir." Was his thinking as simple as that? At that stage, was the decision making as simple as that?
First of all, Vishnu, let me start or begin by congratulating the country and everyone on Vijay Divas. To answer your question, let me just put it in context. When I spoke about Mr. Parrikar asking me in my office in Srinagar, what had happened before that is that, as is natural, the army chief spoke, and he spoke of the larger picture. He spoke of the retaliatory responses possible and how we should cater for it. The army commander spoke next, and he spoke about, again, the picture of entire Northern Command and how we would be prepared for it. So just to put that in context, after the larger issues were taken care of, as the man on ground in operational realm, I then spoke about this. And I just wrote my sentence verbatim. Idea was to sort of grab his attention in a manner that we get a go-ahead for doing something which hadn't happened before in this manner. And I think the leadership was bold enough to take that stand, and we got the go-ahead.
Yeah. General, one of the points that Manohar Parrikar said, and you said it was more of a wishful comment, he said there should be no casualties to our own soldiers, but you disagreed because you said, look, we're going to war, we could lose our men, some of them.
Actually, I agreed with him first.
Oh, you
and
did?
I said,
okay.
I agree, sir. And that's what I've written. I agree, sir, there should be no casualties, but this is war. And there can be no guarantees. Anything can happen in war. What I wanted to do was to be very upfront about it, because it would be a tough call for them to take a decision knowing fully well that there would be casualties, and I could not give a wrong answer. But despite that, we got the clearance.
General, you write, on the day we launched our operation, a few reconnaissance parties had been sent out in advance. They thought that they were going to return at night, but when the operations were launched, they were merged with the raid party and moved ahead with them. That's new information. I've not read of that or heard of that before. Did this party also move into Pakistan-occupied Kashmir?
Yes. I was trying to emphasize the point that when the operations were going to be launched, the date of launch was kept such a closely guarded secret and was disseminated only on a need-to-know basis. So much so that some of the parties that had gone out in the morning during the daytime, at some point of during the day, were actually carried along. They had gone up to some distance to secure a bound, to make sure that we have our eyes out in front, to have our own physical on-ground recce party. They were merged. What I was trying to bring out is that even they thought they might be returning. So that was to do with the aspect of security.
And tell us a little bit about that, because it was a huge operation, right? And the planning went on for several days. Were you ever worried that, look, word of this may never come out? You didn't even give it a code name, if I'm not wrong.
I did. Yes, we didn't give it a code name because it was my thought, or our thought put together when we were discussing it, that look, by giving it a name, Operation so-and-so, and we've heard different names. So somehow one tends to get a little complacent. Okay, we've taken care of security. And so we made sure that we don't have any PowerPoint presentations If anything was to be explained, we tore up papers after that. We tried to have less of paperwork. We had very less people present in the operational room. Only those who needed to be there were there. So it was a very tricky operation, and surprise was the most critical part of it. You can imagine we are going to cross the line of control. We crossed through our post, then we had to cross through their posts, and how disastrous it would be if enemy opened up on us even before we reached the objective. Hence, or anything that could be that had to be done to keep the operations plan and date secret was less.
General, you mentioned on when our men, our soldiers were exfiltrating, not a single soldier had been injured during the raid. But isn't it true that once some of our boys came back onto our side, one of them was badly hurt in a landmine explosion, our landmine, a drifting mine? I think he lost his leg.
And no, negative. What happened was that, and firstly, it was nothing to do with the operation.
Right.
The operation was raids on terrorist camps. But while they were returning, while they had crossed the enemy forward line, then they had crossed into our own forward line, our own minefields, the safe lanes we were crossing. We did have one of the soldiers got a shrapnel of a mine in his boot only. He was not even injured, or there was no major injury even to his foot. I mean, let alone an amputation or something like that. Normally, if there is a landmine blast, the least that would happen is a man losing half his foot, if he's lucky. So to that extent, that was in our own thing, a splinter that got into his boot and had no connection with the operation, which was raid on enemy terrorist camps across the LOC.
Okay. General, now there's a fun part. When these men came back, they flew into your headquarters, and you chose not to give them a cup of tea. You had something much grander in mind.
Yes. What they had done was something very different, very unusual. And the fact that God was kind, we did not have a single casualty. Even I did not expect it. Any military commander would, in his mind, have some kind of acceptance and resilience for some amount of casualties.
What was that in your mind? What was that in your mind?
I beg your pardon?
You raised, sorry to interrupt you, raised a very important point. What was that number in your mind which you thought you may lose?
It may be very difficult to put a number on that. For instance, sometimes when you say it's too high a price to pay, what price will you put on a man's life? So such questions are very difficult to quantify until something happens. But I ask you a question: if 5 or 7 men were wounded, you see, fatalities is a matter of chance. Where you catch a shrapnel or a bullet is something else in your body. That will cause fatality. But if 5 men were injured in some shelling or some shrapnels, would you consider it too high a cost for an operation like this? Actually, everyone would have thought that, okay, this is an occupational hazard. So all I was saying is that we did not have a single casualties, and a great operation had been carried out. And for the first time, the country announced it. The DGMO called the DGMO. The country announced it to the world that we have done it. Unlike Pakistan, playing the deniability card every time by sending in terrorists. So we had done that. And now to answer your question squarely, yes, when they came into the operations room, all this had been sort of announcements, press conference, everything was over by the time they could get to my headquarters, when we could fly in those key commanders. And yes.
Let's see if do we have the line back? We're just waiting for that line to reconnect with General Dua. A little surgical strike done by the internet on this program. But we'll try and get him back in a moment from now. We're just redialing. Let's see if we can wait a few more seconds. Otherwise, we'll have to go back to something else. But it's a fascinating story. What the general is talking about is actually that key part of the surgical strikes. When the soldiers had come back, there was no casualty on India's side, and then he decided to treat them in his office. Now I'm just waiting to see if we have him back. All right, sorry, we don't seem to have him on his end, but I'm going to read out a little bit from his book. He says, before they could start discussing the operation, the boy who used to bring us tea entered with a tray. As instructed by me, instead of tea, the tray held a few bottles of Johnnie Walker Black Label. Normally this would be the time for beer, but today is not a normal day. It's not a day for beer. These tigers need something stronger. That drew a lot of laughter. Everyone was in high spirits. I then turned to Brigadier Rana Kalita, Brigadier General Staff, and said, these Special Forces guys are in the habit of eating whiskey glasses, so I'm not going to risk it. Now this is a fact, as something that Special Forces, each force sometimes have their own traditions, cultures, call it whatever you want. Our Special Forces soldiers eat glass. I mean, they just do. Now this being the case, the good general who's disappeared courtesy the internet was worried about his whiskey glasses, and at that stage he decided to pour the bottle down and give these men a shot of alcohol to celebrate with them. So those are a couple of points. He's also written extensively in the book about his own experiences in leading from the front in counterinsurgency operations. So it's doing very well, India's Bravehearts, and I would suggest that it's a worthy read.